ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भाम् शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे
वन्दे
गुरुपरम्पराम्।
गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ
ॐ
सहना
सहना
ॐ सहनः
भवतु
भवतु
भुनक्तु
सहनौ
सहनौ
भुनक्तु
भुनक्तु
वीर्यङ्करवावहै
सह
सह
वीर्यं
वीर्यङ्करवावहै
करवावहै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु
विद्विषावहै।
विद्विषावहै
ॐ
शान्ति
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 शान्तिः
शान्तिः।
शान्तिः Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya. Okay, so we had completed the second section of the fifth chapter. We are now on the third section of fifth chapter, 5-3. Fifth chapter, third khanda. So we will chant the first three mantras. Shvetaketuh Arunyeha
श्वेतकेतुरारणेह
Panchalanam Samitim Evaya
पञ्चालानां
चालां समितिम् एवाय
समिति एवाय
Tamha Pravanaha
दम्भ
तम्ह
प्रवाहण
प्रवाहण
Jaivali Uvacha
जैवली उवाच
Kumara Anutva Ashishat iti
कुमार
कुमार
अनुत्वा
अनुत्वा शिश अति
Pita iti
पिता इति
Anuhi Bhagava iti Vethayat itaha adhi praja prayanti iti
वेत यति
यदि तु
अध
प्रजा
अधि प्रजाः प्रयन्ति इति
प्रयन्ति
Na Bhagavaha iti
न भगवः
न
इति
भवति
Vethayaya punah avartante iti
वेत्थ यथा पुनरावर्तन्
आवर्तन्त इति
Na Bhagava iti
न भगव
न भगव
इति
इति
Vetha patho devayanasya pitrayanasya cha vyavartanam iti Pitranyanasya
पितृयानस्य च
vyavartanam
व्यावर्तनाः
iti Na Bhagava iti
न भगव
न
इति
भगव इति
Vetha yatha asau lokaha na sampuryati iti
वेत्थ यथा सो लोको न सम्पूर्यत इति
Na Bhagavaha iti Vetha yatha panchamyam ahutau apaha
वेत्थ यथा पञ्चम
Purushavachasa bhavanti iti
पुरुषवचस भवन्ति इति
Na eva bhagavaha
न
iti.
एव भगव
न
इति
भगव इति
Okay, so this is a very, very famous upasana called the Panchagni Vidya. The Panchagni Vidya. And this upasana is being presented as a Guru Shishya Samvadaha. So that itself is an indication, and wherever the Upanishad presents any teaching as Guru Shishya Samvadaha, it's an indirect indication that upasana should be learnt only from a teacher. So this begins with a story. And the story is to introduce Guru Shishya. Right? So there was a person called Shweta Ketu. If you look at the mantras carefully as I talk, you will see how these actually pretty some simple Sanskrit. As I'm explaining, even as I'm explaining, you'll be able to look at the mantras and see where the how the words are being formed. So there was a person called Shweta Ketu. He was the grandson of Aruni, Arunyeya, Aruni, and the son of Gautama. Then Panchalanam Samitim Yeyaya. He went to the court of the Panchala Raja, the king of Panchala. And that king had a name, Pravahano Jaivali. So they are not two different people. They are the same person, the Panchala Raja, Pravahano Jaivali. And Samita means assembly. So he went to the assembly or the court of Panchala Raja called Pravahana Jaivali. And the Raja asked him, Kumara, hey prince, hey Kumara, Anutva Ashishat Pita. Kumara can be, here it is generally not prince, it is the addressing a person who is not married. So Kumara, Anutva Ashishat Pita. Did your father teach you anything? He said. And what does Kumara say? Ityanu hi bhagava iti. I have learnt. My father has taught me. Said Shvetaketu. Now Pravahanaha Jaivali want to know if how much knowledge Shvetaketu had. So he asks him 5 questions. Right? Now there is a very specific subject to this, all the questions. They are all centered on the Jivatma's travel after death. Okay. So Jivatma, of course, is subtle body plus causal body. After death means the physical body is no longer there. Therefore, you must remember that. So he says, Vetha, do you know, Yadito Adi Prajaha Prayanti Iti. How do the Jivatmas travel after death? So Adi Prajaha means people who have lost their bodies or people who have died. Aji Prajaha. People who have died, how do they travel after death? What does Shvetaketu say? Na Bhagavaha iti. I do not know. Hey, O Bhagavan, he's addressing the Guru as Bhagavan. I do not know, Hey Bhagavan. Then Pravahana Jaivali asks the second question. Vetha, do you know? Yatha Punar Avartanta iti. How do they return? So you don't know how they travel. At least do you know how they return? Shvetaketu says, Na Bhagavaha iti. I do not know, my Lord. Okay. Then comes the third question. Pataha Devayanasya Pitruyanasya cha Vyavartana iti. So Pataha, the two paths, Devayana and Pitrayana. What are the common names for them? We have seen these two paths where?
Shuklagati, and
And
we've seen them in Bhagavad Gita.
we see them in
Chapter.
Bhagavad Gita. So Devayana is Shuklagati and Pitrayana is Krishnagati. Devayana is the Shuklagati, bright path. And Pitrayana is Krishna Gati, the dark path. So Vedha, Pataha, the two paths, Devayanam and Pitrayanam, Vyavartana iti, do you know where they separate? Third question. What is Shvatika's answer? Na Bhagavaha. I do not know, Hey Bhagavan. Then he asks him fourth question. Vedha, do you know? Yatha asau loka na sampuryata iti. Asava loka is the Swarga loka. He's talking about Yatha Asava loka. Why does the Swarga loka na sampuryata never get overpopulated, overfilled? Sampuryata means fill up. So why does Swarga never get overpopulated? Na sampuryata. Shvetaketu has only one answer. Na Bhagavaheti. I do not know. And then the Raja asks, Vetha, do you know? Yatha panchayama ahutauhu apaha purushaha vajaso bhavanti iti. And this is the main question, right? The critical word here is apaha. Apaha here means the jala shariram, the physical body which is called jala shariram. So yatha panchayama ahutau apaha purusha vachaso bhavanti iti. How does the apaha, the jala shariram, become Purusha Shariram, the physical body, after the Panchyama Ahutau. After the fifth offering. Okay. These are the 5 questions. And Shvetakutu replies what? Na Bhagava iti. I do not know, O Lord. Okay. Now this is, as I said, it's a very important upasana called what? I just told you. What is?
Panchagni.
Panchagni Vidya. Right. So this fifth question is the main question. What is the import of that question? Once a person's body is burnt, right, on the fire, that is all implied. He doesn't say that. He says, how does the Jala Shariram become the physical body after the fifth offering? The answer to this question is Panchagni Vidya. And Shvetaketu says, Na Bhagava Yati, I do not know. Okay. Now we will chant the next 2 mantras, 5 and 6. So please unmute yourselves. Atha anu kim anushishtaha avochatha.
अथ
अथ
अनुकिम्
किम्
अनिष्टो वचता
Avochatha.
Yaha imani na vidyat.
यः
Yaha
इमानि न
imani na
विद्यात्
vidyat.
Katham sa anushishta bruvita iti.
कथं स
Thamsi
अनुशिष्ट
anushishta
ब्रूवीत
bruvit
इति
iti.
Saha ayastaha pitra adhama evaya.
इति
सहायस्तः पुत्र
Ayastha
सः
अधम एवाय
Tamha uvacha.
तं ह
तं
उवाच
उवाच
Ananushishya vava kila ma bhagavan abravit.
अनुशिष्य
अननुशिष्य
वाव किल मा
Kila ma
भगवान्
Bhagavan
अब्रवीत्
abravit.
अब्रवीत्
Anutva ashisham iti.
अनुत्वा
Anutva
अशिशम्
shisham
इति
अनुत्वा
iti.
अशिषम् इति
Panchama rajanya bandhu prashnan apraksita.
पञ्चमा
मा
Panchama
राजन्यबन्धो
rajanya
प्रज्ञान
bandhu
प्रश्नान्
प्रकर्षत्
रक्षीत
rakshita.
Tesham na ekam chana ashakam vivuktum iti.
येषां न
तेषाम्
एकं
एकं
च
च न
नाशकं
विभक्ति
विभक्तम् इति
Saha uvacha.
सः
Saha
उवाच
uvacha.
Yatha ma tvam tat etanavadaha.
यथा
यथा
मा
मा
त्वं
Yatha
तत्
ma
एतत्
तदैतानवद
Yata aham esham na ekam chana veda.
यथ अहम्
यथा
Yatha
येषां
aham
न एकं च
esham na
एकं
ekam
वेद
cha
वेद
veda.
Yadi aham iman avedishyam.
यदि
यदि
अहम्
अहम्
Yadi
इमान्
aham
इमाम्
iman
अवेदिष्यम्
avidishyam.
अवेदिष्यम्
Katham tena vaksham iti.
कथं तेन
कथं
वक्ष्यम्
Katham
इति
tena
तेन
vakshyam iti.
Okay, so when Shvetaketu said, I don't know the answer to any of the 5 questions, then the king said, Atha anu kim anushishta avochatha. How did you then say that I know, I have learnt? Right? And then he gives a supplementary reasoning. Yohi imani na vidyat katham so anushishtaha. For if you say you do not know, how can then you say, I have been taught? Right? So he says, you said that your father has instructed you, and yet you don't know the answers to any of my questions. How then did you say that your father has instructed you? Okay. So what happens? Shvetaketu had no answer. So he went to his father. He returned home, went to his father, and said, Dad, you have told me that you have taught me. But now use the word Raja Anya Bandhu. Rajan Anya Bandhu. That Bandhu means a person who is not of very high stature. So how did that lowly king, that king was useless king, how did that useless king, he asked me 5 questions, right? You said you taught me everything, and with that confidence, I went to the king. But that useless king, what did he do? He asked me five things, five questions. And Tesham, out of those five questions, the Ekancha na Ashaka. I did not know the answer to even a single one. And then you have to imagine that he repeats the five questions to his father. And his father says, it's no wonder that he did not know. Why? Because I myself don't know the answer to any of those questions. And he says, Katham ten avakshamiti. Had I known the answer, why would I not have taught you? I didn't teach you because I didn't know either the questions or the answers. The father was honest. And then he said, let us go to the king. So the father is Gautama, the son is Shvetaketu. Both went off to the king. Right. Now we will chant the sixth and seventh mantras. So please unmute yourself. Saha Gautamaha
सः
सः गौतमः
Rajñah Adam Eyaya
राज्ञः अदम् एयाय
राज्ञः
Tasmaiha Praptaya
तस्मै प्राप्ताय Arham
Arham Chakara
चकार
चकार
Saha Prataha Sambhaga Udeyaya
सः प्रातः सभाग उदेयाय
Tamha Uvacha
तं उवाच
तं उवाच
Manushasya Bhagavan Gautam Vittasya Varam Vrinith iti
मानुषस्य
मानुषस्य भगवन्
भगवतस्य
गौतम
वरं वृणीय
वित्तं
इति
वरं
Vittasya Varam Vrinith iti
वित्तस्य वरं
वित्तस्य
वृणीत
वरं
इति
वृणीथ इति
इति
Sa Uvacha
सः
स
उवाच
स
उवाच
उवाच
Tava eva Rajan Manusham Vittam
तव
तव
एव
एव
राजन्मानुषं
राजस्
वित्तम्
मानुषम् इत्थम्
राजन्तं
Yama eva Kumarasya Ante Vacham Abhashataha
याम
यम्
एव
एव कुमारस्य अन्ते
कुमारस्य
वाचं
वाचमभाषमसावत
Mam eva me Bruhi iti
वाम् एव मे
तामेव मे
ब्रूहि
ब्रूहि
इति
इति
ब्रूहीति
Saha Kritshir Bhavuva
सः
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 कृच्छ्रेर्बभूव
कृच्छिर्बभूव
Tam Hachiram Vasa iti
तं
तं
हचिरं वस
वस
इति
वच्चिरं वसयत्
Agnyapayama Chakara
आज्ञां पयां चकार
आज्ञापयाचकार
आज्ञाकार
Tamha Uvacha
तं
तं
होवाच
उवाच
च
Yatha ma tvam Gautam avadaha
यथा मा
यथा
त्वं
यथा त्वं
गौतम
गौतमः
वदः
यथा अयं न प्राक्त्वत्तः
यथायं
यथा
न
अयं प्राक्तत्व
प्राक्तः
पुरा विद्या ब्राह्मणान् गच्छति
पुरा
पुरा
विद्या
विद्या
ब्राह्मणान्
ब्राह्मणान्
गच्छति
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 तस्मात् तु सर्वेषु लोकेषु
तस्मात् तु
तस्मात्
सर्वेषु
सर्वेषु
लोकेषु
लोकेषु
क्षत्रस्य एव प्रशासनम् अभूत इति
क्षत्रस्य
क्षत्रस्य
एव
एव प्रशासनम्
एव
प्रशासनम्
अभूदिति
प्रशासनम्
अभूदिति
तस्मै होवाच
तस्मै
तस्मै होवाच
उवाच
इति
उवाच
इति तृतीयखण्डः
इति
इति
तृतीयखण्डः
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 सो सः गौतमो राज्ञः अधर्म एयाय. So adharma, ardhama, no, ardhama, AI. Ardhama means the place or this location. So here he is going to the king's palace. Gautama went to the king's palace and Tasmai ha praptaya, having reached the palace, arham chakara, the king welcomed them and gave them offerings and said, Manushasya Bhagavan Gautama Vittasya Varam Pranita iti. Ask for any human wealth. Hey Bhagavan Gautama, O Lord Gautama, ask for any human wealth. Okay. Why does he address him as Lord Gautama? Because Gautama is a Brahmin and the king is a Kshatriya. So it's a mark of respect. So he says, Hey Bhagavan Gautama, Manushasya Vittasya Varam Vranitha iti. Ask for, choose. Vranitha, choose. Choose any boon, which is for human wealth. And Gautama, what did he say? Tavaiva Rajan Manusham Vittam Yameva Kumarasya Ante Vacham Abhashataha Tameva Me Bruhi iti. He says, Hey king, O king, let this human wealth which you're offering me remain with you only. I don't want it. But Kumarasya ante vacham. What are the words which you spoke to my boy? Tell me what are the answers to the questions that you asked my son. Okay. So that was when the king offered anything, any human wealth, any wealth which he had, Gautama said, No, I don't want any wealth, but I want the answers to those 5 questions which you have asked my son. And then he says, Saha Kritshri Babhuva. The king was very disturbed at these words. Why? You have to imagine the tradition. Then only you'll understand why was it disturbed. Anybody?
Because the Acharya had come to him and he's asking the king about the answers to the questions raised by him. And therefore, he may have felt that uh, he may have felt inferior in front of him by responding to the questions.
Fair enough. So the thing is that who, in the terms of the Varna Dharma, Ashrama Varna Dharma, Shastra teaching could only be done by whom?
The Brahmana.
Brahmins. And the king is who? Kshatriya. So here there is a violation of protocol. The student is a Brahmin and the king is a Kshatriya. Violation of Dharma rules. So the king was disturbed because he was familiar with Dharma. So he said, Tam chiram vaseti agnya payanchakara tam hovacha. The king told Gautama, stay here for some time in my palace. So this is very similar to what the teacher tells you when you go to the Gurukul. He doesn't start teaching you the next morning. What does he do? He says you stay in the Gurukul and look after the affairs. So you take the cow for grazing, you take out the milk, all those things you have to do. All ashrama, duties you have to do. So it's the same thing. King told Gautama that you stay here. Of course, this is a palace. And there are lots of servants. But the stay is what is being talked about. You have to stay here. And then he said, Yathayeyam na prak pura vidya brahmanan gachati. This vidya, this knowledge has never been given to brahmanas earlier. Okay, so giving the reason why Gautama did not know the answers. He doesn't want to belittle Gautama. He doesn't want to tell him that you don't know. So he says this knowledge is purely, so far in this world, has been purely restricted to Kshatriyas. It has never been given to Brahmanas. And Sarveshu Lokeshu Satrasyeva Prashasanam Abhuditi. In the 3 worlds, Sarveshu Lokeshu, this Vidya belonged to Kshatriyas only. Kshatriyas only. Right? So he's telling Gautama that it's not really your fault that you didn't know, because the Vidya was never really given to anybody else. It was among all the Kshatriyas only. So now we look at the 4th section. We'll chant the first 2 mantras. Asau vavalokaha
Asau
असौ
वावलोकः
वावलोकः
Gautama agnihi
Gautama
गौतम
Agni
अग्निः
Agni
Tasya aditya eva samita.
Tasya
तस्य
aditya eva
आदित्येव
samita
समिद्ध
Rasmaya dhumaha.
rashmaya
रश्मयः
dhumaha
Aha archihi.
अह
aha archihi
Chandramaha ankaraha.
chandramankaraha
Nakshatrani visvalingaha.
nakshatrani vispullingaha
Tasmin etasmin agno devaha.
tasmin etasmin agno
एतस्मिन्
devaha
अग्नौ देवाः
Shraddham juhvati.
shraddham
श्रद्धां
juhvati
जुह्वति
Tasya ahute soma.
tasya
तस्य
ahute
आहुते
soma
Raja sambhavati.
raja
राजा
sambhavati
सम्भवति
Yati chaturtha khanda.
iti chaturtha
खण्डः
khandaha.
So a very, what I call, small khanda. And you have to imagine now that they stayed in the palace for some time because he had said, you stay here, right? It's not the next morning sort of teaching. So he stayed in the palace for some time, got used to everything, and then the king starts teaching. First, the king answers the fifth question. Do you remember the fifth question? What was it?
How does the Jala Sharira become the physical body after the fifth of
Yeah. How does the Jala Shariram become the physical body after the fifth oblation? Right. Now, we have to note something here before I start the discussion, which Shankara makes it extremely clear in his Bhashya. He says the Tatparyam of this teaching is not to give you exact details of the travel. The travel details are there. Okay. But the Tatparyam is not to give you those details of travel. The discussion is meant for the Upasana, and the details are meant for visualizing the travel. So don't try to analyze those details and look for inconsistencies. Okay, because this is one of those statements which are not the very essence of Veda. Essence of Veda is what? Brahman. Right? Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya, that is the essence. This is not meant for that. This is meant for Upasana purposes. And if you look at Vedic statements which are Arthavadas, which are Upasana, etc., and not giving you the essential teaching, you can always find inconsistencies. Therefore, Shankara says, don't analyze, don't look for inconsistencies. Okay, it's meant for upasana only, for visualization purposes. And the next comment which he makes is, it is also to create vairagyam in you. Why? Once the journey is understood, you will know that the jiva journey does not end samsara. Samsara will continue. Right? Now, the essence of these sections I'll give you. First, I'll give the gist, right? And that's the most important part. The words we'll see later. So, at the time of death, what happens? The physical body is handed over to the fire, Agni Devata, for cremation. So, the jiva gets separated from the physical body, right? Now, remember the normal um, explanation given by us in all shastrams to the beginners, to the beginning students, Mandha Madhyama Adhikari, is what? That once the body is handed over to the fire, the causal body and the subtle body, which is the very jiva, they travel until they get another physical body. Right? That is the understanding. That once the physical body is handed over to the fire, the jiva without a physical body travels, and sooner or later he gets a physical body. Right? So this is a very specific upasana. Vashruti says that this is not correct. Even as he loses the first physical body, the dead physical body, as it is handed over to the fire, that same Agni Devata, it hands over another physical body at that moment itself. That is a physical body in a very, very subtle form, very, very sukshma form. When I say sukshma form, I mean very subtle form. Subtle form of sthula sarira, subtle form of physical body. We should not confuse it as sukshma sarira. Why?
Sukshma Shariram is already there in.
Sukshma sarira is already there. So right now he is being handed over the. He has already given one physical body back to the Agni Devata. Agni Devata, even as is receiving that physical body, he hands over the next one, right? And why is and that physical body, which is a very, very subtle form of the physical body, which means not visible at all, that is called the Jala Shariram, a water body, right? Why Jala Shariram? Because this Jiva has done Vaidika karma, right? In all Vedic karma, you would have been giving oblations, offerings. Most of the offerings are in liquid form, ghee, milk, all these things, right? And who do you give the offerings to? To Agni Devata. And Agni Devata, he receives the offerings and stores them for this moment. When the physical body is offered to Agni Devata, what does he do? He converts the offerings which you have given him during various homams, various rituals, and he's kept them with him. He converts those oblations into a very, very subtle form of physical body called the Jala Shariram and hands over the Jala Shariram to the Jiva at that very moment. So the Jiva is a refinement of all the concepts so far. Remember, the Jiva is never without a physical body. Why in life he has a gross body, a gross sthula sarira, visible to everybody, useful to him. When that gross physical body is handed over, at the very moment of handing over to Agni, he gets the subtle form of the physical body called Jala Sharira. And therefore, the Jiva begins his travel, post death travel. He begins that travel with that Jala Sharira. So, Jiva is never without a physical body. Right? We should not say now, from here onwards, we should not say that after death, only the causal and subtle bodies travel. We have to say that all points of time, Jiva possesses three bodies. After death, the body is very subtle and of not much use until it becomes a full-fledged physical body. And this full-fledged physical body happens during the travel of the Jiva in 5 stages. So you can see Panch Agni Vidya. There are 5 stages. So in each of these stages, there is a conversion process, a refinement process, right? The Jalashriram is slowly getting converted, getting refined. And each of these stages, each of the 5 stages is called Agni. What are they called? Each stage is a Agni. That's why Panchagni. Each is a process of refinement. And when he passes the 5th stage, the very subtle Jalashriram, after having gone through 4 stages, after the 5th stage, it evolves into a proper physical body. Right? So Agni is the 5 Agnis are like the assembly line. You have something entering at the first, getting refined and refined and refined, and then coming out in the usable physical gross body. This is the text so far. This is a basic. We will go in more detail, but this is how the process is. I hope the process is clear to everybody. Any questions can be asked right now.
Ji Acharya ji, earlier you had used helpful in understanding rudimentary physical body.
Yeah, so rudimentary physical body. The physical body, the word used in Shastra is Jala Sarira. Okay, which is very subtle, rudimentary physical body. Because it doesn't cannot be used at all. It's only there. Okay. Now you may have several questions, That's why I said don't apply your logic. But there are some possible questions. What about the jivas whose bodies are not burnt? What about people who don't give the bodies back to Agni Devata? What about people who go into space and get lost? What about people whose bodies are lost at sea or in a mountain or in an earthquake or in some accident? They're never found. They fall off a mountain, never found, or found hundreds of years later. Does Agni Devata give them a body or not? What about those jivas who have never done Vajika karma? Because if he has never done Vajika karma, he has never offered oblations to Agni Devata. How will Agni Devata give them bodies? And in the old days, ladies did not offer oblations. Animals don't offer oblations. Plants don't offer oblations. How will Agni Devata provide them bodies? What should be your answer? Because you will get all these doubts. So these questions you will never find answers in Shruti or in commentaries also. Right? So we use the law of karma because the law of karma applies to everybody, irrespective of whether he had done oblations or not, irrespective of how his body was lost. And therefore, you simply say that the Jalishariram is supplied by Agni Devata according to their karma. So here you can forget about all these details where you have offered oblations and the Agni Devata has kept the oblations with you and all that. So everybody gets a rudimentary, very elementary Jalasariram according to their karma. That is the understanding. But here, as I said earlier, this is not, the section is not for analyzing the travel of the jiva or getting knowledge about how the jiva travels after death. It is for upasana purposes only. You're talking about the specific case of a practicing Vaidika who has done all the karmas. With that in mind, now let us look at the mantras. So, asau vava loko gautama agnihi. Asau lokaha is swarga lokaha. So, Gautama agnihi. Hey Gautama, swarga is the first agni. Right? So, Agni Devata gives the Jala Sariram and the Jiva travels to Swarga. Okay. One more thing is don't, and Shankara makes this in his clear in his commentary also. Do not translate Jala Shariram as water Shariram. It has all the five elements. That body will have Panch Mahabhutani, but predominantly it is water. It is water. And for that matter, your physical body, what percentage is water?
70%.
70%.
About 70%.
Predominantly, even our physical body is water. Therefore, we are entitled to call this also Jala Sharira. Right? Okay. So, Shankara says that don't think it is 100% water. It is all the five elements only, but predominantly water, and therefore Jala Sharira. Okay. Then he goes to Swarga. Then Tasya Aditya Eva Samit. For the first Agni, you need Samit, fuel. What is the fuel? Aditya. The sun is the fuel for the first Agni. And if there is fuel, there will be smoke. Rashmayoho dhumoho. The sun's rays are the smoke. And aha achihi. The flame is aha, the day. And Chandrama angaraha. The embers is the moon. And nakshatrani visufilingaha are the sparks. The stars are the sparks. Why so much of a description? Because during the Upasana, You have to visualize in this manner that the body is being handed over to the first processing center, the first Agni. First Agni is what? It is Swarga. And there the fuel is the sun. The sun is there. Agni is burning. The smoke is there. The day is the flame. The moon are the embers. Stars are the sparks. All this you have to visualize. And Devaha Shraddham Juhati Agnau. The gods. So here the word Shraddham has to be taken as Jala Shariram. So Devaha Jala Shariram Juhati Agnau. The Devas offer the Jala Shariram into the Swarga Agni. Into Swarga, which is Agni. And out of that, so Swarga is the first Agni, the first processing center. Out of that, what happens? Somo Raja Sambhavati. Out of this Swarga Agni, Sambhavati is born Somo Raja. The Soma Sariram comes out. So the first processing center has done its job. The Jala Sariram has been converted into a Soma Sariram. Soma is moon, right? So why like that? Because Shankara says that Soma Sariram has to be taken as a refined form of Jala Sariram. And since it's refined, it shines like the moon. And therefore it is called Soma Sharira. Okay. All very nice upasana. So we can keep on looking at that. Now, we look at the first two mantras of the fifth khanda. So please unmute yourself. Varjanyah Vava Gautam Agni
Parajanya Bhava
Varjanya
Gautam Agnihi
Asya Vayuhu Eva Samita
Tasya
Tasya
Vayu
तस्य
Eva
वायु एव
Samitaha
समिद
Abram Dhumaha
Abram
अभ्रं
Dhumaha
धूमः
Vidyut Archihi
Vidyut
विद्युत्
Archihi
अर्चिः
Ashnihi Angara
Ashnihi
Ashnihi
Angara
अङ्गारः
Angaraha
Hardanyah Visfulingaha
Ardhanaya
अर्जन्यः
Visvalinga
Tasmin Agnau Devaha
Tasmin
तस्मिन्
Agnau Devaha
देवः
Somam Rajanam Juhvati
Somam Rajanam
राजानं
Juhvati
जुह्वति
Tasya Ahutehe Varsham Sambhavati
Tasya Ahutehe
तस्याः
Varsham
आहुतेः
Sambhavati
वर्षं सम्भवति
Iti Panchamakhanda.
Iti
Iti
इति
Panchamakhanda
पञ्चमखण्डः
So this khanda, this section, it describes the second Agni, the second processing center, and it says Parjanyaha Vava Gautama Agni. Parjanya indeed, hey Gautama, is the second Agni. Parjanya is what?
Rain.
Rain. We have seen this in Bhagavad Gita. Okay, Parjanya is there, it's the rain. So second Agni is rain devata. And etasmin agnau devaha somam rajanam johati. The soma shariram, somam, is offered to the second Agni, which is Parjanya Agni. And tasya vayureva samita abramam dhumaha. The Parjanya Agni also needs a fuel, and there's also smoke. So, tasya vayurevaha. The fuel is vayu, and abhrama dhumaha. Smoke. The smoke is what? Dhumaha. Abhrama, the clouds. And what is the flame? Vidyut archihi. Lightning is the flame. And what is the angaraha? Ashnihi. The thunderbolt, the vrajaha. That is the angaraha. Flash of lightning with a simultaneous crash of thunder. Okay. So Ashnihi angaraha. And Hradanayoho Visfulingaha. The thunder of the clouds are the sparks. So the whole process is described. Fuel is Vayu, Smoke is the clouds, lightning is the flame, thunderbolt the embers, the rumbling of the clouds, as thunder itself. Thunderbolt is the lightning. Okay, lightning is the ember, and the rumbling of the clouds, that is thunder, are the sparks. And then what should happen? The final product should come out. So tasya ahute, from that offering, varsham sambhavati, rains come. Okay. When this is offered, when that soma body is offered to the rain gods, what happens? It starts to rain. And you have to supply that the jivas are there contained in the rains. It's all very imaginative. Okay, so the raindrops which are falling, you have to visualize them as containing rains. And all your ancestors will be there inside because they're also falling, right? They've been given to the Agni. So they're all falling. All the raindrops are the jivas. What does it do? It gives you suddenly a lot more respect for the rains, right? Because your own ancestors are there, and one day you'll also be there. Okay. Now we look at the sixth khanda. Again, two mantras. So, Prithvi Vava Gautama Agnihi
पृथिवी वाव गौतम
गौतम अग्निः
Tasya Samvatsarah Eva Samit
तस्य
तस्या
तस्य
संवत्सर
संवत्सर
एव
एव
समित
समित्
Akashadhumaha
आकाशधूमः
आकाशधूमः
Ratri Archihi
रात्रि
रात्रि
अर्चिः
अर्चिः
Disha Angaraha
दिशः
दिशः
अंगारः
Avantara Disha Visfulingaha
अवान्तरदिशो
वान्तरदिश
विस्फुलिङ्गाः
विस्फुलिङ्गाः
Tasmin Agnau Devaha
तस्मिन् अग्नौ
तस्मिन्
देवाः
देवाः
Varsham Juhvati
वर्षं
वर्षवति
जुह्वति
Tasyaha Ahute Annam Sambhavati
तस्या
तस्याः
तस्याः
आहुते
आहुते
आहुतिरसम्भवति
अन्नं सम्भवति
Iti Shashtakhandaha.
इति
इति
षष्ठखण्डः
षष्ठखण्डः
So even as you read, you can understand, right? The third Agni is Prithvi, and the rains, which is what? The rains is the Varsham. Varsham is Shariram. Remember, the bodies or the drops of the rains contain the bodies. So the rains, the Sharirams, the bodies, they fall on the earth. So the raindrops. And then what happens? Tasmin etasmin agnau devaha varsham juhati. The devas offer so this is called the Vrishti Shariram, right? Because it is now the rain Shariram, Vrishti Shariram. So this devas offer the Vrishti Shariram to the third Agni, which is what? Prithvi. So when the rains fall, what is happening? The devas are actually making an offering of the liquid, that is the Jal Sharirams, to of course, the refined Jal Sharirams to the third Agni, which is Prithvi. Now we have to see what are the fuel, etc. So tasya samvatsara eva samitaha. The fuel is what? Samvatsaraha. 1 year. And akasha dhumaha. The clouds are the akasha. Ratrihi archihi. The flame, the archi, is ratrihi, the night. And angaraha is dishaha. The four directions are the embers. And what are the sparks? Visfulingaha, avantara the dishaha. So that is the secondary directions. There are, of course, four main directions. So then there are secondary directions. So secondary directions are these sparks. And then what happens? Tasya ahutehe, from that offering, annam sambhavati, comes the annam, the grains. And this is the anna sharira. So you have jala sharira, soma sharira, vrishti sharira, and now anna sharira. Any difficulty so far?
No.
So let's try to finish one more khanda. We look at the seventh khanda. पुरुषः वाव गौतमग्निः
पुरुषो
पुरुष
गौतम
वाक्
गौतम अग्निः
तस्य वाक एव समित
तस्य वाक एव
तस्य
समित
वाक एव समित
प्राणः धूमः
प्राणः
प्राणः
धूमः
धूमः
जिह्वा अर्चिः
जिह्वः
जिह्वा
जिह्वा
अर्चिः
अर्चिः
चक्षुः अङ्गाराः
चक्षुः
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 अङ्गाराः
अङ्गाराः
श्रोत्रं विस्फुलिङ्गाः
श्रोत्रं
श्रोत्रं
विस्फुलिङ्गाः
विस्फुलिङ्गाः
तस्मिन् अग्नौ देवाः
तस्मिन् अग्नौ देवाः
देवाः
अन्नं जुहति
अन्नं
अन्नं
जुहति
अन्नं
जुहोति
जुहोति
तस्याः आहुते रेतः सम्भवति
तस्य
तस्य
आहुतेरेतः
आहुते
सम्भवति
ततः
इति सप्
सम्भवति
इति सप्तमखण्डः
इति सप्तमखण्डः
सप्तमखण्डः
So the fourth fire is Purusha, the male human being. So tasmin etasmin agnau deva annam johati. Into that Purusha, which is the male fire, which is the male, was the fire, the devas offer the Anna Shariram. Right? Anna Shariram is being offered as Ahuti. And what are the five factors? Tasya Vageva Samitaha. The fuel is the speech. Dhumaha, smoke is Pranaha. Jivha Archihi. The flame is the Jivha, the tongue. Chakshuhu Angaraha. The eyes are the embers. And Shrotram Visfulingaha. The ears are the sparks. So fuel, smoke, flame, ember, sparks. These are to be seen in each of the pranas of the Panchagnis. And Tasya Ahutehe Retaha Sambhati. From this offering comes what? Emerges the semen, the male semen, the male seed body. Okay. So we still have some little time. Let's try to finish however much we can. So the two mantras of section 8. Yoshavav Gautama Agnihi
योषावाव
योषावाव
गौतम
गौतमग्निः
गौतम अग्निः
Tasya Upastha Eva Samita
तस्या
तस्य
उपस्थ एव
उपस्थ
समित
एव
एव
समितः
समित
Yato Mantrayate Sadhumaha
यदुपमन्त्रयते
स
तद्धूमः
धूमः
Yonihi Archihi
योनिः
योनिः
अर्चिः
अर्चिः
Yat Antah Karoti Te Angaraha
यद्
यत् अन्तः
अन्तःकरोति
करोति ते
तदङ्गारम्
अङ्गारः
Abhinandaha Visfulingaha
अभिनन्दा
अभिनन्द
विस्फुलिङ्गाः
विस्फुलिङ्गः
Tasmin Agnau Devaha
तस्मिन्नेतस्मिन्
एतस्मिन्
अग्नौ देवाः
तस्मिन् अग्नौ देवाः
Retah Juhati
एतः
रेतः
एतः
जुह्वति
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 Tasyaha Aute Garbha Sambhavati
तस्या आहुते
तस्याः
तस्याः
गर्भः
आहुते
सम्भवति
गर्भः
सम्भवति
सम्भवति
Iti Ashtamakhanda.
इति
इति अष्टमः
अष्टमखण्डः
खण्डः
खण्डः
Okay. So the fifth Agni is what? The girl, the woman, the wife. So Yoshavava Gautama Agni. And what happens? Tasmin etasmin agnau devaha reto jugati. The Purushas offer the male semen into this fire. And tasya upastha eva samitaha. What is the fuel? Upastha, the reproductive organ. And upamantrayate sadhumaha. Upamantra means what? To come close, right? So the spoke is the male coming close to the female. Upamantra is coming near, coaxing, the foreplay, so to say. So upamantrayate sa dhumaha, yonihi archihi. The womb is the flame, and yet antakaroti te angaraha. The entry of the semen, the reta shariram, this is called a reta shariram, into the yoni are the embers. And Visfulingaha Abhinandaha, the pleasure produced are the sparks. And then what? Tasya Ahutehe Garbaha Sambhavati. Out of this offering comes the fetus. The finished product, the body, final body, is the product of the fifth fire. Okay. So with this, we'll stop for today. Any questions? Remember that this is solely for upasana purposes. You cannot try to use it to say, oh, science says something else. No questions.
So are these fires, are they answering the questions in reverse order? Like the first sacrificial fire you said was the answer to fifth question.
No, this is the entire answer to the fifth question. How does the Jala
Oh,
Shariram get converted to physical Shariram?
okay, okay.
All the mantras are giving you the journey of conversion. The Panchagni Vidya is the answer to fifth question only.
Fifth question. Oh,
So that is the most important part of the fifth question. Other questions will also be answered. But the most important one is
Yeah, if we compare it with the biological process of a birth, I'm just giving an analogy to that. So in that case, when we compare it with this process of fetus formation, uh, our respect for our shastras,
yeah.
They go up.
Yeah, in fact, see the point, so many of natural things are being used, including the rains and the earth and the
Yeah,
plants. So
yeah,
that's why we worship everything.
yeah,
Because everything is consciousness, right? It might be your great grandfather there who's falling from the sky.
yeah,
So you have to be worshipful.
yeah, yeah.
So that's why.
Thank you.
So with this we'll
And
stop.
Acharyaji, what science took 5,000 years to realize when a Vedas knew, maybe it's there in the Vedas 5,000 years back. Apurushaya.
Yeah, I mean, Vedas, you can't say it's 5,000 years ago. It's given a lot. It's given with the uh, birth of the
Drishti.
universe. Yeah, the Srishti. So that's where we differ from people who try to use science to date the Vedas. For us, it is not from a human mouth. So, you know. So with this, it stop. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat
Purnat
Purnamudachyate
Purnamudachyate
Purnasya
Purnasya
Purnamadaya
Purnamadaya
Purnam Eva Vasishyate
Purnamevasishyate
Om
Om
Shanti
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 Om Tat Sat
Om
Om Namah
Bhagat
Shivaya. Thank you for your patience. Om Om.
Thank you, Acharyaji.